Hello everybody, here's some of the prompts for our last writers meeting. I'm trying to represent them visually. We got talking about a number of topics. One of them was Vikings, which I'm trying to represent with this hat, which isn't actually a Viking hat, and Mounties, and other things that people dress up as in historical site jobs that they get when they're writers, storytelling jobs. So it's about dressing up as a Viking, dressing up as a Mountie, dressing up as a dinosaur, which I don't actually have here. And we're also talking about Vikings and whether they are Scandinavian or Nordic if they come from Finland. So I looked it up afterwards, and I think that Finland is actually a Nordic country, but not a Scandinavian one. So that was the answer to that strange question. We've also got here a computer monitor, but not just any computer monitor. This is one that no longer works. So it was about a question of how Olympian gods would deal with computers if they didn't know how to use them, and whether it would be less trouble for them to just power them with magic rather than having to deal with troublesome mortals that they'd have to haggle with and grant favors to if they wanted to have their computer problems resolved. So we talked about emailing Zeus, and we talked about Vikings and Mounties, dressing up as a Mountie if you work at a historical site looking for jobs that's a storytelling job. And I also talked about music to have a seizure by. This came up in discussions of art classes and strange things that go wrong there, like people having seizures in the middle while they're trying to compose art. It's also a strange problem people run into in that some of them can't paint still lifes of things like fruit, this is a plum, when they are allergic to the fruit. So that led to the seizure question, music to have. When you're having an epileptic seizure, what's the best music to either bring you out of it or enjoy it to its fullest? I've also got a pit here, and that was our nickname for our writing location. We call it the pit, and that brought up the question of whether there was also a pendulum in the writing location, which then got us talking about Edgar Allan Poe. So we tried to incorporate something connected with Edgar Allan Poe in our writing. This led to a variety of different things. One of them was a story about inheritance and leaving or getting material from property from a Viking mother. And another one was about a confrontation in a museum between a brontosaurus and a Viking. And I think it involved a taser and some people who were a group that had come from a mental hospital. Another one was a surreal piece about Vikings going around in areas that are magical and defy gravity, so they're riding their longboat through the air, tethering it to cliffs of insanity, which is another one of our references you might know about, and running out from a Devonian forest, and dealing with bad cheesecake. Somehow we were talking about bad cheesecake because someone had been disappointed before coming into the meeting on what they had ordered nearby. We all had a story about sickles and cycles of life, an improbable meeting between a downed bird rum and biscuit trader and a one-toothed Inuit with a wolf waiting by. So what happened to that, I'll leave to your imagination. We also had the speculation of what Edgar Allan Poe would have written as popular music if he had been a modern rock star. So it was a pondering of various music titles and wondering which ones could have been his. And we also had a reverse Edgar Allan Poe story, one about instead of someone being unwillingly walled in and buried in order to get rid of them, people trying to wall themselves in order to save their lives. And at the end we finally got the pendulum question to come up, which we tried to raise all along. One person finally managed to insert that into a story at the last minute. But in some cases we got virtually every one of these prompts mentioned within a single story. So all in all, a pretty good meeting.